One of my favorite films opens in a bar in a small Hungarian town. Inebriated men ask a young man to show them how the solar system works. The young man proceeds to organize the men one by one, first picking one patron to stand in the center and twinkle like the sun. He then chooses two more to play the earth and the moon. They set off together, spinning around the sun. The scene evolves into a slow, chaotic dance as the men on the sidelines look on in wonder. Today, we take part in a ritual that marks both an ending and a beginning. We are moving out into the greater world and away from College of the Atlantic, a place which has for us not simply been an educational institution, but an educational community. We have learned much in the classroom and in the field, but we have perhaps learned the most from our personal interactions with people and the environment here at the college, and beyond. Sean first talked to me about his childhood, his abusive stepfather, the belt that became all too familiar, his sister, a crack addict who always managed to help him get into more trouble. All the while he talked to me, he used a spoon to eat peanut butter from a jar and an avocado. His chin often dropped to his chest, eyes fluttering shut, a position in which he remained for minutes each time. His low blood sugar did not keep him from continuing his story without missing a beat each time he awoke. Later, he told me that he believed he had been given this disease, type 2 diabetes, by God in order to slow him down. Sean's arms were covered in scars, some of them from the knife fight that landed him in prison the first time. Sean is homeless. He lives in Seattle. Every night, Sean goes back to the Greenbelt to sleep. He and the other homeless call this section of land the jungle because the drug lords there carry AK-47s. Sean and the other homeless do as they are told. He often runs errands in exchange for food and protection. The police won't even enter the jungle unless they are outfitted with full SWAT gear and assault rifles. A year after I met Sean, I spoke with Lun during my internship in Hanoi, Vietnam. Lun contracted HIV/AIDS from her now-deceased husband, a former migrant worker, a truck driver. Lun's story opened my eyes to the fact that migration, the sex trade, human trafficking, and drugs, particularly heroin, are all inextricably linked. Nothing reveals the true nature of globalization like the drug trade. Heroin crosses into Vietnam from China, from Cambodia, and from Laos on its way to awaiting ships in Vietnamese ports. The movement of drugs across borders facilitates other illicit activities, human trafficking, prostitution, slavery. As a result, the HIV/AIDS epidemic is expanding among IV drug users, sex workers, and their clients, migrant workers like Lun's deceased husband, the truck driver. A trail of human suffering crosses halfway around the globe, preceding Sean's indentured servitude to drug lords in the jungle of Seattle. Everything in our world is inextricably linked to everything else. All of our lives are intertwined. The life of Lun, the Vietnamese HIV-positive woman. Sean, the homeless diabetic who lives in Seattle's jungle. Joy, my friend who died 2 years ago of a heroin overdose. My father once said to me, "The more you know, the more interesting life becomes." Indeed, the more we learn and experience, the more intricate and complex life becomes. As human ecologists, we refuse to see the world in simplistic terms. This can be overwhelming. With our decision to look at the big picture come many challenges. It is necessary to bear witness to that which is painful, to not avert our eyes from suffering, for the importance of feeling cannot be understated. We have all tasted things in this world that bring our hearts to tears. Yet our tears are shed as often for beauty as for pain, as often for love as for hate, as often for joy as for despair. As the men in the Hungarian bar perform the motions of our solar system, they are joined in this dance by the onlookers. But it is late and it is closing time, and the bartender orders them to stop. As the young man leaves, he looks up to the bartender standing in the doorway and says, "But it's not over yet." Just as the dancers must end their performance, we have reached the conclusion of our time here at College of the Atlantic. We can be comforted to know that the dance of the planets around our sun continues, and that no matter what happens, we will continue to listen, to learn, and to communicate. We will continue to see the world in all its complexity, and no matter how overwhelming, we must always allow ourselves to be struck by the beauty around us, and we must always strive to create beauty in the world. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Mikas, who's going to give our final student perspective.